Where else should we start off in but Mercedes Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia? Georgia Bulldogs versus Texas Longhorns. Texas favored by 2.5 in the game. Kirby Smart and Georgia are heading to their seventh SEC championship game. Bulldogs are 2-4 straight up and 3-3 against the spread in those games. Kirby's 104-18 straight up overall in his coaching career with Georgia. 22% of his losses have come in the conference championship game. He's just 5-7 straight up, but 8-4 against the spread as an underdog with Georgia. So that helps him here. Obviously winning against Texas as an underdog earlier this year as well. Since the inception of the SEC championship game back in 1992, the favorite is 25-6 straight up, but only 14-16-1 against the spread. 2 of those 6 losses have come from Georgia as a favorite versus the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we've seen Georgia in this game, 4 years in a row now. The last 3 years they came into it undefeated every year and only won one of those. And it's going to be an interesting game. It's a good rematch. Georgia went into Austin earlier this year and just punked the Longhorns on their home field from the very get-go. The Georgia offense really didn't do a lot of damage against the vaunted Texas Longhorns defense, but it just looked like the Longhorns offense, Sark, Quinn Ewers, they just weren't ready for the moment at that time, even at home. And so I think it'll be a good test for both these teams. They're both going to make the playoffs, but I think it'll be a good test. One thing I'm looking forward to seeing is I think we're going to see quite a bit of Arch Manning in this game because we saw what Haynes King was able to do last week against that Georgia defense. Arch has got the legs on him. We saw what he did against A&M coming in with those packages. Ewers is probably 90% right now with that ankle, so not 100% healthy. I think Arch has a chance to come in and make a big difference on the ground for the Longhorns in this game.
Yeah, and we every time we break down a big Georgia game, we talk about what's the weakness against Kirby Smart. That Kirby Smart, Nick Saban style defense. It's dual threat quarterbacks that can move. If you were just a standing target that's going to, if that defensive line and Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann and all that brain power on that defense, if they know where you're going to be, where your quarterback's going to be, they can come after you and come get you. Because again, most teams just don't have the defensive lineman that Georgia has. There is a very few teams in college football that have guys like that. And it's been like that for years. I mean, there literally is only probably 4 or 5 teams that have defensive linemen that can match, and as many of them as Georgia has. We saw that in that Texas game. Guys, Texas had 29 yards rushing against Georgia earlier this year. You just saw what Texas did against Texas A&M. So that tells you just how impressive that it really was that when Georgia showed up in a bad mood and showed up and went into the Death Star mode is what people call it, when they went into Death Star mode in Austin, of what that defensive line could do. And since that game, it's been more of what we saw before that game. Going into that game, nothing but our eyeballs told us that Georgia was going to go in and punk Texas and Austin. But yet again, they did. Since that game, there's nothing that my eyeballs have told me that makes me think that Georgia is just going to wear Texas out in this game. But in Georgia's, some of their biggest games this year, they've stepped up and played well. I know they lost on the road at Ole Miss. Yes, that happened. But they did go into Texas and spank them. They did spank Tennessee. They beat both of those teams who are ranked in the committee's top 10 right now, but double digits. But something that I wanted to point out. It's weird that going into this game that when you think about Georgia, you normally would think that Georgia's going to have the advantages on defense. Georgia has all the advantages in the rush game. And that's just not the case by the numbers. But something that I was curious about, because going into that Texas-Georgia game earlier in the year, the number one thing that we did not know about Texas was, and again, it's not Texas's fault that Michigan turned out to be what they turned out to be. But Texas's strength of schedule compared to Georgia's is laughable. And honestly, again, Texas had the second easiest schedule of any team in the Southeastern Conference this year as far as conference schedule is concerned. Again, that's not Texas's fault. That's Greg Sankey's fault, and that's the front office's fault for the Southeastern Conference. I'm not knocking Texas for that. I'm just honestly stating facts here. That's just what it is. Texas is the number 2 defense in the entire country. They're number 2 ranked defense in the entire country. But I went a little deeper into this and I said, okay, that's great that you've got the number 2 defense, but who did you do that against? Here's some numbers for you. So far this year, Georgia has faced 6 offenses that are ranked in the top 40 in the country in total offense. Nobody else has faced more. Texas has only faced 2. One of those was Georgia. Georgia has faced 5 offenses ranked in the top 20 in the nation in scoring, more than anybody in the country. The best scoring offense that Texas has faced this year, Georgia, at 25. Texas has faced 2 rushing offenses ranked in the top 50. 2. Georgia has faced 5. Where I'm getting at is, that is where you can see, Georgia has played one of the toughest strength of schedules in the entire country. And then when you actually take deep dives into the numbers, maybe Georgia's defense is not ranked as high as someone like Texas because Georgia is facing Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama, Clemson, much better teams than what Texas has faced. So we're going to find out Saturday. Again, is Texas's defense really that for real? Or is it propped up a little bit because they faced poor offenses? It could be both. Again, it's one of those things that it turns out to be one of my favorite sayings this year. There's more than one truth. There could be 2 truths to this. Texas's defense could be propped up, but they could also be for real. And then regards to the offensive numbers, something I thought was interesting. When you think of Texas this year and you think of Sark and you think of when you watch Georgia this year, their offense just doesn't look very good. They really don't. Texas averages 34 points per game on offense, and Georgia averages, Texas averages 34.8 points per game on offense this year. Georgia averages 34.1. And again, Georgia has faced tougher competition. So there's not really that much of a difference there. So let me ask you, Tyler, where do you think in this game, where does Texas have the biggest advantage?
I think it's first I got to know if Kelvin Banks is going to be at left tackle for Texas. He went out in the first quarter against Texas A&M, so I want to know if Kelvin Banks.
He's listed him as questionable.
He's questionable right now. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of Trevor Etienne at running back, considering he just put his name in the transfer portal.
I did a bunch of research on that before the game. Julian Humphrey, the corner for Georgia, and Trevor Etienne. Dude, there's no word anywhere if they're playing or not playing. I figured, they're definitely not playing. I don't think Etienne's going to be playing.
He's questionable on the list right now, and Humphrey's not even on there, I don't think.
Yeah, and there's already quotes from Kirby Smart that said that he wasn't even close to playing last week. Mm-hmm. He was listed as questionable, but he wasn't even close to playing injury-wise last week. And Georgia's got other tailbacks that are actually coming back. They've had a lot of injuries at that position this year. 2 of those guys are probably going to play this week. Branson Robinson, I think, is possibly back. There's Roderick, something whatever. There's multiple guys for Georgia are possibly going to be back at the tailback position this week to back up Frazier, the superstar freshman that they've got out of Mater Dei High School. So, yeah, I don't think Etienne, but I honestly don't know that really matters that much if he's going to play or not. Julian Humphrey, though, at corner, that's interesting to me that, again, there's a lot of quotes out there. There's nothing saying that he's playing or not playing.
Yeah.
Kirby actually said that's news to him. The transfer portal is not even open yet, so I don't know how you can say you're in the transfer portal when there's not even open yet. So I don't know if he's playing or not playing. But that's obviously not a good look that you've got 2 of your fringe starters that are announcing they're going to the portal the week of the SEC championship game.
Yeah. I think Georgia's going to have the crowd edge here. Obviously, it's in Atlanta. But, Texas fans are going to travel, and they don't care that they're going to have to travel.
First SEC championship game ever, they'll be there.
They don't care that they're going to have to travel 3 or 4 more times here in the next month and a half either. So they got that oil money down there in Texas.
So they got money. They got money. Come on now.
Yeah. So, still proximity-wise, I'm maybe 60-40 Georgia fans.
I was going to say, I bet that Texas travels extremely well to this game.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I just, I think Texas's defense does have an edge. I know the numbers you said. I think they still do have an edge. I think they can force Carson Beck into some tough situations, into some turnovers. Nobody's really been impressed with Georgia's skill position players all year long. So I'm not sure if they can do
That's
a
their
lot of
biggest
damage.
problem. That's their biggest problem, man. The amount of they literally lead the nation in drops.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. Think about that. I'm not. And that's not just Power Four. That's Group of Five too. They lead the nation in drop passes. That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it'll come down to I think it's a tight game. I think it's a lot closer game than it was last time.
Yeah. I think
I
there'll be
don't-
less than 7 turnovers like there were last time too.
Yeah, less than 7 turnovers. Yeah, if you remember what Georgia got out to a 23-0 lead. Texas eventually brought it back to 8 was the deficit. Ended up being a 15-point deficit. So,
I also think Texas's D line is Texas's front 7 in general. Like again, Texas did a really good job against Georgia. I mean, Georgia only had 283 total yards in that game last time, and they gave Georgia a short field 4 different times.
Yep.
And Georgia still only amassed 30 points in that game total. So
that's the thing. I think if they do not give Georgia short fields and they don't turn it over in their territory, it's going to be a lot tougher on Georgia this time.
I think both of these offenses, man, are going to have a really tough time again against these elite defenses. You're going to have to hit explosive plays.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you're going to be able to just consistently for 4 quarters to be able to sustain long drives against like Texas had like how they ran the football last week against Texas A&M. Like at some points during that game, I was like, I mean, when the hell is it? Does Texas A&M had the ball? Like in the last, like have they even been on offense? Like Texas just controlled the line of scrimmage and control. I don't think they can just control. If they do control the line of scrimmage against Georgia, they're going to win this game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you can just line up and run the football off tackle without a dual threat quarterback helping you against this Georgia defense. But I also don't think that Georgia can do that either against this Texas defense. So I do think both defenses are going to control this game. Who can force some turnovers? Who can force the catastrophic mistakes in this game? And
who's more likely to turn the ball over between Beck and Ewers?
Well, it's been Beck more this year, but
Ewers had a couple I mean, I know that ball was tipped that got pick 6 last week, and he fumbled again in the red zone the next drive. But I just think, it's going to be a good game either way.
I'm picking Georgia.
Okay, Lance is on the record.
I'm picking Georgia this week. I got burnt last time. I may get burnt again this time, but I'll live with it if I get burnt this time. I said before the season even started that no way Georgia was going to go into Texas and lose that game. They were going to go into Death Star mode, all that. And then when the week of the game came along, I said I wasn't going to let my eyeballs lie to me, and they did lie to me. I just think that Georgia's defensive line is going to cause a lot of problems for Ewers again. I believe in Sark and think that Sark is one of the best offensive play callers in all of college football. But again, it's really hard to call plays when you can't block the other team.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Texas is just going to be able to just all of a sudden, just because there's a few weeks later, is just going to be able to block Georgia again. I think Texas has looked like the better team all year long. That's obvious. But I still think that Texas has not played that tough of a schedule. A lot of their numbers are propped up, defensive numbers especially, are propped up because of who they've played. I think it's a great game as well. I think it's going to be a one-possession game. But I think that there is a chance that Carson Beck actually plays better than what he's played mostly throughout this year. And he's a little more consistent in this game, and I think Georgia gets it done. And I think that defensive line for Georgia just causes problems again for Ewers, and the Dogs get it done in a very close, hard-fought game in the Mercedes Benz Stadium.
Yeah, we've said all year long Texas's offense is just kind of leaving a lot to be desired out there.
Yep.
And I just can't see. It could just be a matchup thing here where they look like the better team all year, but when they play Georgia just got the edge on them for some reason. And it could just be a matchup here, bad matchup for them. And so if Georgia, does beat Texas, that will probably avoid a possible rematch in the quarterfinals between these two as a 2-7 matchup. So that would help things go a long way with not seeing, 3 matchups within the span of, 2 months here. So
And
I'm going to pick Georgia in the game too, as well. I
Whoa.
think that they're going to go in there and they're going to get the job done. Kirby's not going to lose 3 straight SEC championship games. And he's not going to allow Texas to come in the SEC and win their first season in. So I'm going to pick Georgia.
Okay. Quick question. Do you think, I already know the answer, you don't think they will? I believe if Oregon loses and if Georgia wins this game, I think the winner of this game, if Oregon were to lose to Penn State, I believe the winner of this game is going to be the number 1 overall seed in the playoff. I think that Georgia would be over Penn State. I know you disagree, and that's, I get it. I understand why. But I just don't know how they would justify that with the fact that Georgia then would have 4 wins in the top.
Here we go again with these ranked wins.
I mean, there's pretty good wins. They're not just ranked wins.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying they're bad.
They're wins against some of the most highly power rated teams in all of college football.
Yeah.
So, and the strength of schedule would be significantly through the roof in comparison.
Yep.
But yeah, we don't have to get into that debate right now. We can debate that on Sunday.